are totally unacceptable. But some South Africans blame foreigners for the lack of jobs and economic opportunities. Several African nations have advised their citizens to exercise caution while in South Africa. We'll bring in our guests in a moment, but first, this report from Haru Matasa in Johannesburg.
Police in South Africa try again to stop rioting and looting in some poor neighborhoods in and around Johannesburg. It's been like this since Sunday. Some of the businesses and shops vandalized belong to foreign nationals. This is not the first time Mohammed Afzal Hussein has been through this. He says his other store in another part of the city was looted last year.
If it's every year something like this, how can I can make something for my families, for my children, for my parents is there? Because we have come from so far for work, not for a crime or whatever, only for work.
Some South Africans believe criminal gangs are responsible for the violence. Mario Abrunosa says he got a phone call early in the morning that his business was being looted, but it was too dangerous for him to move. Now that it's relatively quiet, he's come back to assess the damage.
I still found people still looting as I arrived here with the police presence. And all I wanted to say is it's not about a foreign shop. I'm a South African citizen. I employ South African people that work for me in the shop. And they targeted, it's just a pure criminality attack that they've done here to me. And I'm running at a loss. I'm without words. I don't know what else to say.
Some say the country's high unemployment rate, now nearly at 30%, widespread poverty and inequality are to blame for the violence. In 2008, at least 60 people were killed and more than 50,000 forced from their homes when many foreign African nationals were targeted. 4 years ago, at least 7 people were killed. Some South Africans feel they are competing with outsiders for scarce jobs. Human rights groups say anti-immigrant comments made by some politicians are making things worse.
There's a xenophobic sentiment underlying this about foreigners having to leave. We are a democracy. We are a democratic society. We can't allow people to take the law into their own hands. There is no country that doesn't have foreign nationals.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has condemned the attacks as xenophobic and unacceptable. More than 100 people have been arrested for public violence, arson and looting. But in some areas, the police seem overwhelmed, making it easy for some people to stay in the street. Haru Matasa, Al Jazeera, Johannesburg.
Well, let's introduce our panel now. Joining us from Johannesburg, Dakota Lekwete, the national spokesman for the governing ANC party. In Durban, we have Daniel Dunya, provincial coordinator for the campaign group Right to Know. And also joining us from Johannesburg, academic Roshan Dadu. She is the former director for the Consortium for Refugees and Migrants in South Africa. Good to have you all with us. Mr. Lekwete, let me start with you then. Beyond the statements of condemnation from President Ramaphosa, what does the government plan to do to stop attacks like this happening again? Because this isn't the first time, of course, that we've seen waves of violence like this against foreigners in South Africa.
No, thank you very much, and to all the viewers at home. Look, as the African National Congress, we would want to reiterate the position that was stated by our president, that we condemn this particular criminal act with all the strongest terms, and we see it as a despicable posture that can be done by any nation against its own people. And we want to put things into context. You know, when this whole matter started, it was last week when it started in Sunnyside, wherein a taxi operator wanted to do what we call a citizen arrest to a Nigerian who was selling drugs, and that Nigerian shot that taxi operator, and it gave rise to all the problems that we have. It is a matter that started from a genuine case of fighting drug peddling, but it turned ugly, and now it has been hijacked by opportunists and criminals who are going around looting shops, particularly shops which belong to foreign nationals. As the African National Congress, we have made it very clear to all our deployees in government that the police must act, all security agencies must act, And where possible, all criminal elements must be arrested so that we ensure that there is stability. But equally, we want to place it very clear that we would not encourage anyone from anywhere, any part of the world, to come to our country, destabilize and undermine our sovereignty to an extent even of wanting to wipe off the next generation through drugs or through illegal or illicit substance or wrong actions which are in conflict with the laws and the rule of law in our country. And we do this with the careful consideration that we would want to encourage our Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Relations to engage all ambassadors, including all ministers in the region, in the SADC region, including in the AU, to try to speak to this particular matter of the challenge of drugs, of the challenge of relations amongst nations, and the issue of mutual respect amongst nations, so that we do not have a repeat of this particular matter, but we deal with it once and for all, because it's a matter that cannot be left unattended. Because if it's left unattended, it means people will have to take the law into their own hands, and it's something that we cannot encourage. And we want to put it categorically clear to all South Africans that we would not want anybody to take the law into their own hands, allow the police and all criminal investigations to be done on this particular matter so that we find an amicable solution. Those who are dealing with diplomacy and other issues of international relations, let them come to the party. And some of us, those who are dealing with the issues of internal affairs, let us ensure that all foreign nationals who are in a country are equally protected, and we expect them also to respect the rule of law and to respect all the laws in the
When you talk about not wanting to see people take matters into their own hands, when you have public officials in South Africa, like the health minister, for example, talking about foreign migrants being a strain on services, and other officials making statements similar to this, what message does that send to those who want to carry out these attacks, who may have been just waiting for a chance, like this, and just would do it for their own reasons?
Look, whatever that was said by those officials, it does not represent our position as a party. You must know, we are the African National Congress. African meaning that we find our existence in terms of an African nationalist movement with an ideological outlook of an African nationalism, which is based on a principle of Ubuntu. One of the things promoted by Ubuntu is humaneness, it's humility, and being humble. So mutual cooperation amongst nations, it's something that we have embraced as the ANC even since our formation in 1912. Our historical mission was about the unity of Africans, and something that we still pursue today. Our existence was on the issue of humanity, and that's why today, anywhere else in the world, even in the continent where there's human rights abuse, we are the champions as the African National Congress. These particular acts which are happening in our country today, they are despicable. We cannot encourage them, be it from our own nationals or foreign nationals, because some of them must also assist us, because they've helped to exacerbate the situation to be out of control.
How have foreign nationals exacerbated the situation in your view?
Look, I mean, if somebody comes to your country as an asylum and later becomes a drug dealer, it's a problem. And it cannot be encouraged. And that's why some of these criminal elements went to an extent even to attack everybody, because they want to use that as a justification or as a reason. And it's wrong. We cannot encourage it. And that's why we would also want everybody to cooperate so that we all respect our law enforcement agencies to ensure that at the end of the day we find an amicable solution. And that's why even from us as the ANC, we would want to pursue a Minister of International Relations to engage all affected nations and countries and whose citizens are in our country, so that even the ambassadors are properly informed of all the steps that we are doing as a nation, of all the interventions we are doing, because we cannot encourage an African on African attack, a black on black violence, or any form of violence against any human being. It's wrong. It's un-African. Does not represent the principles of Ubuntu. Because you know, I mean, we have been advanced as Africans to accept everybody in the globe to be within our shores. And it has been very normal. It has never been something difficult. With some, even in Europe, Asia, and elsewhere in the world, they are still struggling today to accommodate other fellow human beings.
Daniel Dunya, what do you think is behind this latest wave of attacks on foreigners in South Africa?
We believe that this is the state complicity on the attack of migrants in South Africa. In the past few days, we had statements from the officials, from the state officials, the Deputy Minister of Police, the Minister of Police, the Minister of Health. All these people were giving the people the order to attack migrants. And migrants have been attacked for quite a while, and they were silent. After people's shops have been looted, people abandoned, now they are coming with statements which are not assisting anything. Since 2008, migrants in this country have been attacked, and the state is quiet. They don't have any plan to mitigate the issue of xenophobia. 2015, people were killed, only statements on TV and on radio, and nothing is being done to address the underlying cause of xenophobia. That's why we are saying state is complicit on these issues, because they don't have any plan to address it. It's not the first time this thing happening.
Roshan Dadu, what do you believe is the underlying cause of this? I mean, we hear a lot of talk about the poor economic situation in South Africa right now, the lack of jobs and so on. But is it all about that, or is there more to it than that?
Well, I think it's a number of things. Of course, it's the socioeconomic conditions, the high unemployment rate, the extreme inequality within our country, as well as abject poverty. But it's also the government's lack of service delivery, and that's both at municipal level, and Joburg, where the violence has been mostly the last few days, is a Democratic Alliance-run municipality, as well as ANC municipalities and at national level. I think it's also important to mention that we are still a divided society. The legacy of apartheid still haunts the way we other each other. And therefore, it's a kind of a right breeding ground for othering others from outside of our borders. And I think we have to mention here corruption. I mean, the 9 years of Zuma's rule has seen billions taken from state coffers, which adds to the lack of service delivery, stolen not by foreign nationals coming across our borders, stolen by our own elected politicians. And we have to raise that issue up as one of the aspects that causes dissatisfaction amongst our communities. And I think we're living in a climate where none of the politicians actually give much credence to the voice of the poorest people and the most vulnerable in society. So they have little option, ways in which they can express their discontent. And what a recent study from the African Center for Migration and Society was arguing was that mobilization is the vital connective tissue between the discontent and xenophobic violence. And I think these acts of violence that we've seen in the last few days have been mobilized. It's not just some random sporadic incident. In fact, the description that the ANC spokesperson gave of the incident was not what was initially reported, where it was said that the taxi drivers were also angry at the police for colluding with drug dealers, and the nationality of the drug dealer isn't really important. Drugs are a problem in our society, but to equate that with foreign nationals is one of the ways in which politicians whip up an anti-foreign sentiment. Of course, we don't want to see the kind of drug abuse that we have in our society and the problems it causes. But we could throw out every single foreigner tomorrow, and I'm telling you, we'd still have the same drug problem. It's not because of the foreigners. And making those kind of connections, then everyone starts to think, oh my goodness, foreigners, drugs, yes, the two are connected. So I think it's a whole bunch of reasons that causes discontent, which then through mobilization at local level, through local political actions, but also at national level, as has been said by the previous speaker, the statements of ministers who should know better, of ANC people, like the spokesperson, that are continuing to equate foreigners with other problems that are problems the government should be dealing with. You know, I think that whole combination of things causes people to move from being just simply discontented to finding a target, and an easy target is foreign nationals in communities.
Let's put some of that back then to Dakota Lekhwete. Dakota Lekhwete, what do you say then to this, to some of that, and this view as well that the government itself has contributed to the conditions that have led many people in South Africa to conduct attacks like this on foreigners in the country?
Yes, look, as the ANC, we want once more to reiterate that government officials or ministers who speak what does not represent the party, they does not represent us. You would know in all challenges that we have within the human nature, part of them are by reckless leaders. And I think we want to condemn, as the ANC, those leaders who have been speaking off the line, which has led to the situation getting out of control. We would not want to encourage any leader nor government official to speak something that does not represent our foreign policy and our resolutions as a party that is governing the country. It is wrong in terms of our principles and policies that we espouse as the ANC. Amongst them is that we need to have human solidarity, because even ourselves as the ANC, we are a beneficiary of human solidarity. Other countries, when we're in exile, when during the repression and the oppression of the previous regime, they gave solace to us to be within their shores and gave us a support. It cannot be us as the ANC who thank them through negative attacks, including on their nationalities and all the people from those particular countries. And we want to call for calm as the ANC to all South Africans. We want to call for calm from all other foreign nationals who are in our country. Let us allow the law to take its course. Let's allow the law enforcement agencies to ensure that those who are responsible perpetrators, they are brought to book, because this particular matter, it has now been turned into something criminal, because even businesses belonging to South Africans have been looted, and it is wrong. People, both for South Africans and for foreign nationals, is wrong. We need to emphasize this. And this has disrupted the normal life of South Africans, because in other areas, there are no schoolings, there are no business, even garages can operate to put up gasoline. So everybody's car is stopped, shops have stopped.
All right.
There's no bread and milk and basic amenities that you need to run your daily life. And I don't think it's something that as a governing party would want to encourage. We would want a solution from government also.
Daniel
Dunya, from those who are
is this also a law and order issue in terms of these attacks that seem to go on with impunity? I mean, does more need to be done to strengthen the system and to go after those who commit these attacks?
Yeah, for me, what I can say is that since xenophobic attack started in 2008, if I remember well, we don't have anyone who've been perpetrators of xenophobic attack who is behind bars now. Someone was convicted for 10 years in prison. That should send a strong message to the people to stop it. But what happened is that we say no, people have been arrested and they put very, very easy charges, and tomorrow are released. Now to say that the law enforcement will take responsibility, yes, that is baffling the international community, because after 2 days, those people will be released and no one will feel the pain of doing xenophobic attack. So the police themselves, they're involved. The state need to stand. And the challenge we are having with the state is that, like now, because things are happening, they will come on TV, they will condemn the situation. But what plan the states have to mitigate the current